Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Higher Vibes Podcast. I'm your host Markeisha. Y'all know who I am by now. But today on episode 3, we're going to be discussing victimhood mentality or victim mindset. So let's jump in. So, of course, y'all know I always got my journal with me. I'm always writing down stuff. I don't know where my pen at, but I got my journal. But okay, so as you know, how we usually go when we do my podcast is that whatever subject we have, we define the subject, and I give my definition, and sometimes I won't give my definition because it's the same definition. But we're just going to go into the definition of victim mentality. So it says a psychological concept that describes a mindset where someone views themselves as a victim of others' actions, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Okay, so I wrote a little bit of notes, and I do have certain situations, or um, I would say, let me see how I can form this. A period in my life where I was in that victim mindset, but as I evolved and as I grew, I learned that putting yourself in a victim mindset or having victimhood mentality would just often put your vibrations very low, because without taking accountability of the situation or whatever happened, that was actually even your fault. Even if it's not your fault, just taking accountability on your part, actually, it it helps you evolve and it helps you heal. So being in a victimhood mentality actually hinders your growth. So once I realized, oh, this is what's no longer serving me, this mindset, I had to jump out of it. Stop blaming people. Stop putting myself in situations where I knew I would be like, I knew you were going to do that. I knew. Just follow your intuition and just understand yourself enough to know, like, I'm not going to put myself in that, and I'm not going to put myself in that position, and I'm also not going to put somebody else in a position where I'm blaming them. You have to hold a lot of spaces for yourself and make yourself accountable for the things that come up in your life and the things that you are responsible for on your part. Okay, so what I wrote down in my notes was situations across the board of life can make you feel like a victim. But how are you viewing your story after it's been told 1,000 times? As you being the victim, it is empowering uh, your character. Is it I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Is it empowering your character, or is it giving you unnecessary validation from others when we are understanding, when we understand, when telling a story, oh wait, when we understand the value in telling a story, whatever story we tell ourselves and others, what are we trying to achieve for the outcome of telling our story? What's the intentions, motives, and energy we seek to find from telling a story? Do we seek love? Do we want company? Do we tell ourselves lies to keep us comfortable and stand where we are? This is what I ask uh, when I'm telling my story. Certain situations like going through a breakup, being essayed, and going through financial hardship would trigger this mindset. Um, and that's what I wrote in my notes to tell you guys about the victim mindset or the victimhood mentality. So a lot of situations, as far as like I explained, like the breakup, or situations where something happened to you in your past and it was like very bad, and it traumatized you, or just going through financial hardships, um, those can all bring on like a victimhood mentality or a victim mindset, especially when someone else is doing the actions. But as I evolved, I've understood that a lot of the times things happen in our past that are supposed to build character, and it's supposed to be a piece to the puzzle on our journeys. And when we understand why things happen, you can often, when you step out of the victimhood mentality, you can go about it and tell your story in a very empowering way that will help others that went through the same thing as you, kind of look at themselves as the victor instead of the victim. um, Often, uh, we don't view a lot of our trauma as something that can empower us, because we get too engulfed in the situations and the trauma and the things that happen to us. And so our emotions are meant to, this is what we have emotions for. Our emotions are meant to feel and then move on after we process these situations. However, we choose how long to process the certain situations that goes on in our life. um we then have to move on through life, shedding layers of that processing going on, because nothing happens in a day. But if you're evolving, healing, and doing the work, um to help you grow in such a way to where you don't want to wear your trauma as a badge, then you have the understanding of what your trauma is supposed to be used for. And that helps you also grow out of the victimhood mentality or the victim mindset. um I would say a lot of tools that I used was like, um sitting with myself, having a dialogue with myself, and just trying to understand in what purpose did my trauma solve, and what purpose did my trauma come up for, so that I can use it towards whatever reason that I needed to use it for, because it's a purpose for all of our trauma. And then on top of that, also, every situation coming up forward, analyzing a lot of things that happen, if I feel as though I'm tipping into, because how you catch yourself going back, because I used to catch myself going back into that victimhood mentality, and I was like, hold on. You can easily slip back into it. And I'm like, okay, so this person did this upon their actions, but what are you going to do to reflect something that shows that you're not a victim? Or do you want to be the victim in this situation? Because I have to ask myself that too, just to be honest and sure with myself. And I would tell myself, no, I don't want to be the victim in this situation. And then I go on in a deeper dialogue with myself about how can I further analyze certain situations, and how can I catch myself before I go into this mindset of, that's that's not my problem, I'm going to blame them, and they're going to be always be the person to blame. So when I go into um analyzing that, am I blaming this person, what am I blaming them for, and how can I process this situation or look at this situation in a different perspective, to where I'm not blaming this person for what they did, but understanding that that had to happen for me to be who I am today and tell my story how I wanted to tell my story, and also let others know that this happened to you. If I got through it, you can get through it too. If I have a healthy mindset now, you can also have a healthy mindset now. And then going into other situations where it could be as something as simple as I don't know. I was about to say something about she hit me, he hit me. But I really don't know, to be honest. Cuz I'm going off the dome here. But just knowing like small situations, like as far as you getting into a spat or I would say not an argument but a disagreement with someone, and you would just often be like, well, they trigger me, and they got on my nerves, and it's their fault that they did that. But when you look at it, you then have to understand, why did they trigger you? Or why do you want to blame them for triggering you? Because a trigger is just a notification of something deeper that you need to resolve within yourself. And when you understand that, how like to catch certain situations where you're slipping into blaming somebody, or you're slipping into, oh, um that's not my problem because they did this and that. You have to then understand, what am I doing to my character? What am I how is this going to help me evolve? How is this going to help me heal? So when you're going into things and understanding that a victim mentality and a victimhood mindset only brings you to a certain level of awareness, you don't not want to be aware. Like some people, they really don't want to be aware, but me, growing and healing, I want to be aware of everything. Like let me know. Like I tell all my friends, like if it's something I did, if it's something I said, if it's something that made you feel uncomfortable, don't feel like you can't talk to me about it. Don't feel like I'm gonna get offended or be like, oh well then you should never did this because I did that. I wanna know in all areas, how do you see me? What is coming up? What do I look like? Like I wanna understand more about how I operate and how things are for me and how I'm evolving. And so that's why I've chosen to step out of the victimhood mentality, because it doesn't help me grow. It's lack of awareness when you choose to not go and do your research on yourself and who you are and why you operate the way you operate. And so let me see some other tools I wrote down. Yeah, I think I talked about that. Taking a step back while in a situation, because sometimes we can be halfway in a conversation and be like, hold on, did I just do that? Why did I do that? Why did I make them feel like it was them? Especially in relationships. Like in relationships, sometimes people often tend to blame the other person because the other person committed action, but sometimes you also have to look on your part in what you did, or in your part, or how you treated yourself, or what relationship you carried with yourself, for these people to be mirroring your actions in your relationship with yourself. Especially, for example, I have an abandonment wound, and so a lot of my relationships, not a lot, but a couple of my relationships showed, where they have just, disappeared or walked off or did whatever with their life, and it showed that a lot of the times I was abandoning myself because I didn't put myself in the center. So when I understood the gist of everything and why my relationships were how they were, and it wasn't all relationships, just probably like one or two. When I understood like the gist of the relationships, I was like, oh, I need to gravitate back to me. I need to center myself. I need to learn how to pour my energy back into me because it's slipping away. And so a lot of men are very attracted to women who love to take care of themselves, who love to be on top of the things of how they are with themselves in a relationship and how they carry, I would say, healthy men. Um but I went from a mindset in relationships from blaming the other person to actually looking at the parts in which I played in my own suffering and how the relationship ended, and just looking at my own healing and seeing where can I step out of this box of blaming other people, even in my platonic relationships, even in relationships with my family. Just where can I stop the blaming of you hurt me, and start to actually heal and hold myself accountable for the things that are happening in my life. Because technically, I choose my own reality, so I needed to just stop blaming people. But let me see if it's another. Okay. Yeah, so the other one was taking a step back while in the situation and asking, how can I shift my perspective? What am I supposed to learn from this? And noticing when I'm telling my story, how my body feels to me, how my face look, and how my energy feels. So those are like significations or signals in which I'm noticing, just while I'm communicating with people, also acknowledging my body and acknowledging me, acknowledging my thoughts that come up, and me understanding how I operate with my relationship with myself and who is ever mirroring the relationship with myself. And because I'm an empath, I had to learn a lot of boundaries. And so I don't know what that has to do with anything, but it probably ties in somewhere. But just learning, like, also not to take on other people's emotions and other people's feelings and stuff like that. Because energy transfers are real, and so when you know yourself and you know how your body operates and you're healing, you then can get to experience this part of you that is now acknowledging that that's not my gift, like that's not for me. And whatever people choose to have, whether they choose to have an attitude with you or choose to do something as far as the way it's looked to putting you back in that mindset, or something to trigger you to make you go back into that mindset, you could just choose to not do it, and just be like, I'm not doing that today because I'm on my healing journey, and that's not how I operate. So when you get an attitude with me, I ain't matching the energy. I'm not doing that. But that's all I have for y'all today. This is episode 3 of season 2 on Higher Vibes Podcast. Victim mindset. Victimhood mentality, victim mindset, however you want to put it, I don't care. But I'm your host, Markeisha. Thank y'all for listening. I love y'all. If y'all want to find me, my TikTok is Moona's World _ MOONASWORLD _ and then on Instagram I'm Higher Vibe Bae, HIGHERVIBEBAE. And then on YouTube we have Higher Vibes Podcast. And we're also on Apple and Spotify platforms. I love y'all. Thank y'all for listening. Peace, love, light, and healing, family. Have a great day.